Hey, good morning, Metropolis. It's now 5 after the hour of 6 a.m. in the big monster city.
Come on! Let's get pumped!
I'm not drinking any fucking Merlot! What can I say? The camera loves me.
Shall we begin?
After you, Junior.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Multiplex Logged It. I'm your host, Kaleb Boatman. Tim is gone this week. Don't be sad. He'll be He'll be back next week. I almost said he'll be next back week. I'm already off to a great start. Don't worry. You won't be stuck. You'll only be stuck with me alone for 1 week. Anyway, we are doing best remakes. I should have remade that intro. Ha ha, little funny joke. It wasn't funny. Anyway, we got a great panel for you. Opening a bag of something, Mr. Payson Johnson. Payson, how are you feeling?
I'm doing good. I just realized what this is, and I'm very, very excited to check that out. Oh, screw it.
You gotta show it. I assume it's a Criterion of some kind.
Not a Criterion, but it's Dune on 4K. So I'm super excited to watch it. Yeah, of course it is. But yeah, I'm very excited to be on this show. To anyone who is sad that Tim is gone, he is seeing a certain anticipated movie tonight, so don't be too sad for him.
Absolutely.
Is the Batman a spoiler? Is that we can't say that?
Well, I did. Yeah, okay.
I mean, he posted it on his Facebook, so.
Yeah, good point.
All right, well, also on the desk tonight, Mr. Kirk Kalakowski. Kirk, remakes, you have opinions.
I do. Opinions on remakes, opinions on sequels, prequels, all of it. How great it would have been if he opened that bag and it was poured. That would have been fantastic. But no, I'm excited to be here. I've been on the show for a while. I love watching the show. It's a lot of fun. Always a lot of good topics. Always excited to see how Payson goes to stick his foot in his mouth. But I'm glad to be here live.
Absolutely. I'm just getting flashbacks to last week.
You watched last week, oh boy.
Also, with a new setup that looks awesome, Mr. Brian Michaels. Brian, we'll see. Do you think you're going to be very much in line with Kirk tonight or very much out of line with Kirk tonight?
There's certain movies I considered which would have been very out of line with Kirk tonight. But I think the ones I went with, I don't think he'll judge too harshly. I don't think he'll love them, but I don't think I'll suffer his wrath tonight.
That is fair. I don't think anyone wants to suffer the wrath of Kirk Kalakowski. It's too similar to the wrath of Khan. And we also have Mr. Letterboxd himself, Jackson.
Wow.
Oh, shut up.
Probably the most famous letterbox in this community at this point. Jack, how are you feeling?
I don't know if I'm more famous than Kirk's letterbox, but I'll take it. I'll take it. I'm doing pretty good.
Letterboxd does have a video store category in and of itself, so that's fair. Well, after the introductions, let's just get into the show. Let's talk about some good things, positive things. This was a week. So let's talk about some good things. What's your favorite movie you logged this week? Payson, we'll start with you.
Yeah, my favorite movie I logged this week, it's a 70s movie. It stars Jack Lemmon. It's called The China Syndrome. This movie is a borderline horror film. In case anyone doesn't know it, it's about a nuclear reactor where an accident occurs, and if the people in charge of that essentially let that accident happen do not want to put in the cost to make sure it doesn't happen again. And if that accident essentially does happen again, it would be cataclysmic. And it's about Jane Fonda, who's this news reporter, trying to convince her higher ups, hey, we need to report on this. Jack Lemmon is the in charge of the reactor. He's trying. He starts out thinking oh, it's okay. I built this reactor. It'll be strong enough. And then slowly watching him realize oh, everything I put my life into is not being taken seriously and needs to be taken seriously, I think is incredible. Lemon is amazing in this movie. He was nominated for an Oscar, and he absolutely deserves it. I just the like procedural nature of this movie. It's slow in a way, but it's so engaging. Like, I was just enthralled at every single moment of this movie. There's very little score, and I kind of like it with these types of movies. It just makes it feel more raw. And like, this is low key like. The reason I call it a horror story is because these are things that, like, I just think about sometimes. Like, there are just some things that are, like, technically government, like, run that, like, if something goes wrong there, we're screwed. Like, I live in Arizona. We have the Hoover Dam. Sometimes I'm just like, if that dam breaks, bye-bye us. And that would be sad. But, yeah, I absolutely love this movie.
That is fair. This one's great. This is one of my favorite first-time watches of last year, and the film is absolutely excellent. Jack Lemmon in this movie. Wow. Like, obviously, like, I know, it's like, oh, you're praising Jack Lemmon, one of the greatest actors to have ever existed, but, like, this is a top-tier Lemmon performance. He's incredible in this. Jane Fonda is not an actress I always enjoy, but she's really good in this. Michael Douglas is kind of giving a good, like, early, very energetic Michael Douglas performance, which I always enjoy. I really like young Michael Douglas. I think young Michael Douglas is fantastic. Plus, I want to shout out Wilford Brimley. I love Wilford Brimley in just about anything, and he's great in this, kind of as the more calm one to Jack Lemmon, and I think that dynamic just works perfectly. Kirk, you ever see The China Syndrome?
Yeah, I actually just saw this for the first time a couple weeks ago. And I always thought, like, I knew it was like about a nuclear power plant. I always just assumed it was like about the whole movie was a nuclear disaster. And watching it was something very different. And I really liked it. Like Pace said, it is like a horror movie. I said in my review, it's like Jaws if the shark was like corruption and, you know, nuclear fallout. It has like that kind of like foreboding element to you have three people like trying to work against it, work against the system. And so, yeah, Jane Fonda is great. Like, just like her trying to be taken seriously and like just as a person, but in this situation specifically. Yeah. And, you know, growing up in Pennsylvania, you know, Pace was talking about Hoover Dam. This is right around the time of like the 3 Mile Island accident. And I remember I wasn't, you know, around for that, but I remember like, you know, people talking about it when I was a kid. And you know how much this relates to just the reality of, you know, what could happen. It is really terrifying. But yeah, and Jack Lemmon can do no wrong.
Absolutely. Brian, have you ever seen this?
I have. It's been several years, so I honestly don't remember a whole lot of it. But I do remember really liking all the performances in it, especially Jack Lemmon, of course. And like what they were both already saying, it comes across really almost like a horror movie. What this reminded me a lot of is that if anybody watched the miniseries of Chernobyl that was on, it had a lot of same kind of parallels to it. Now that one, obviously, the full accident happened, but as far as the early episodes of that, when they were like, you know, discovering the problem and trying to fix it, but then there's all these people, the bureaucracy trying to cover it up because they don't want to get in trouble or don't want the, you know, to lose the public's trust or their funding or whatever. And it got a whole lot of that stuff where there's like the bureaucracy versus the safety of the people involved, and they're trying to cover all these things up. And it really does come across like this constant sense of, you know, dread of what's coming to happen. So it was pretty entertaining from what I remember.
Yeah. Jack, you ever see this?
I have not, but I love Jaws. I like Michael Douglas, and I really love Jack Lemmon, so I'm going to see it eventually.
That is fair. Okay. Well, Kirk, we'll move over to you. What's your favorite movie you logged this week?
Favorite movie I logged this week was not what I was expecting to love. I really enjoyed it. I was up late. I think it was this past Saturday night. I finished the movie, and I wasn't tired. I was like, let's just watch something fun. So I ended up watching Cop Shop. And wasn't expecting much of it, but I really enjoyed it. I love like one location kind of like thriller movies, and this one just does it so great. It's almost like an assault on Precinct 13 kind of feel to it. There's a a couple people get arrested. You find out there's more going on with them, and then people are coming in to get them, and there's a whole thing. The police have to try to defend them. Some of them are bad, and it's a lot of fun. It's Gerard Butler being used exactly the way Gerard Butler should be used. Just like the perfect kind of role for him. The girl that plays the one that plays the main cop, I'm I'm looking her up here. I can't remember her name. Alexis Louder. This is the first I've seen of her. I see she's been in a couple of things lately. It's the first I saw her, and she's great. I think she's going to be a star. She's really good in this. And then Toby Huss, who's just this character actor who's been around forever. I remember he was Elaine's boyfriend on an episode of Seinfeld once. But he's done little bit points like TV stuff. He comes out of nowhere and plays like the psychopathic big bad in this, and he's great. And it's a fun little like violent shoot 'em up thriller, and I had a lot of fun with it.
That's fair. I have not seen this, but I'll be honest, you're kind of selling me on it. Payson, you see Cop Shop, you see all the new releases. I assume you've seen this one.
I did, and I honestly had quite a bit of fun. Like this movie isn't like breaking any new ground, but like if you just go in expecting like a fun action movie set in like a contained location, I think you're gonna have a good time. If I could give special mention to anyone in the cast, Toby Huss plays this like deranged assassin, and he is hilarious in this movie. Like I had a lot of fun in this movie. There's a there's a line in this movie where he just insults the Tom Cruise movie, The Last Samurai, which made me feel bad for Thomas Scully. But I enjoyed this movie.
That Tom Cruise movie no one saw.
Yep.
That's fair. Making me think we should have put this on the poll for movie of the month. Brian, this seems up your alley.
I love Joe Carnahan movies. I mean, like A-Team, Smoking Aces, Boss Level, I loved a couple of years back. So I went into this one really expecting to love it. And I did enjoy this quite a bit, but not as much as his other films. Because it definitely kind of has that sense of humor to it. It definitely has the action to it. Toby Huss, as they've already covered, is the MVP of this movie. He is tremendous in this. The only thing that kind of drags it down a little bit for me is especially towards the ending, there's just a few too many like twists and turns they try to have with it. I get a little, overcomplicated. But yeah, if you're just looking for some fun action and stuff too, it's great. And yeah, the cast, I mean, like I said, Toby Huss, Frank Grillo, I always like. He doesn't get the star in a lot of things, so I love watching him be in stuff like this. And Gerard Butler is great too.
Thank you for reminding me. I have a DVD copy of Smokin' Aces that you sent me that I still haven't watched yet. Jack, you see Cop Shop?
No, not entirely, because it was at my theater for a couple weeks when it was in theaters, and I popped in while doing theater checks a couple times and stayed to watch some of it, and it was a hell of a time for the scenes I did end up seeing. Toby, or is it Toby Huss?
Mm-hmm.
Not to repeat what everyone else has been saying, but he's fantastic, and like he's just a lot of fun. Gerard Butler's fun in it. Frank Grillo's actually like I enjoyed his performance in the moments that I saw, and yeah, it's a fun movie.
That's fair. Okay, well now we will go over to me. We'll go to my favorite movie I watched this week. I'm going with a film that I saw on the Criterion Channel. This film I've heard very few people talk about, and I thought it was absolutely excellent. It's a film from the 70s called Between the Lines. This is the best way I can kind of describe it is imagine if, like, you took broadcast news, but made it like a chill hangout movie. Like, kind of if you cross like broadcast news and The Big Chill, like that's it kind of has that vibe because it centers around this underground magazine or newspaper and that is kind of has this looming that it may get bought out by this bigger company, and all these kind of countercultural reporters and photographers and kind of their interpersonal relationships along with, how they're kind of coping with what might be happening at work. And this movie just has a stellar cast. John Hurd is the kind of the main lead of this movie, and he's great. It's a young John Hurd, and this is the best work I've seen from him. He's fantastic in this. But you've also got Jeff Goldblum, Bruno Kirby, a few other people, and Lindsay Krause. Just a lot of character actors you'll recognize and go, oh. And yeah, I thought this movie was excellent. I'm going to assume no one here has seen this.
No.
What are you
I have
talking
not. It's been something that's been on my radar for a long time, mostly because of the cast, but I've not gotten around to watching it yet.
Yeah,
You go, Kirk.
I was gonna say I haven't watched it yet. It is on my Criterion watch list. I never heard of it. I came across it. I was looking at another movie, and I think I just kind of like went down a rabbit hole and got to this. And I just looked at that cast. I'm like, wow, how have I never heard of this movie before? So yeah, it's definitely what we'll try to check out soon.
That is fair. So now we'll go over to Brian. Brian.
Well, the best movie I watched this week was when I rewatched The Raid, but I won't talk about that one. As far as my favorite first time watch this week, nothing blew me away, but I saw a few that I thought were pretty good. One of them was 99 Home. This is a movie from 2014. Stars Andrew Garfield and Michael Shannon. Basically, Andrew Garfield's a guy who's losing his home, is being foreclosed on. Basically, he lives with his mom and his son. Michael Shannon is the guy basically who makes his living helping foreclosing these homes, and he tries to renovate them and flip them and make money on them. So he's kind of the villain, I suppose, of the movie. Although at times he seems like just a guy who's just doing his thing. They don't really make him out to be really evil until kind of towards the very end. But Andrew loses his home, and he's trying to get it back. And basically, he's out of work, and he ends up accepting a job working for Michael Shannon, basically helping him evict all these other people out of their homes for this big real estate deal they want to go down. And it's a whole moral conflict of he needs the money, he wants to help his family, wants to get his family home back, but at the same time he's doing these things to these other people that are what put him out of his home. So it's a whole big dilemma there, and it's just one of those things. It's a really good acting showcase. Andrew Garfield obviously does a great job. Michael Shannon kind of plays his usual kind of borderline psychotic evil role. Laura Dern plays Andrew Garfield's mom, so she's good in that as well. It's a small film that a lot of people didn't see, but I really enjoyed it.
That's fair. Jack, have you seen this?
No, but I did read through the wiki a couple months ago or something like that, and it seemed interesting. I don't remember a whole lot of it, but I do want to see it because Andrew Garfield.
That's
Michael
fair.
Shannon.
Payson, you see this one?
I have not. I know it came out around the same time as The Big Short, and I always said, oh, that'd be a fun double feature, the house foreclosing double feature between this and The Big Short.
Fun according to Payson.
I'm not sure if I called it fun, but
Yeah,
Kirk, you see this one?
I have not. I remember when it came out and see the trailer, and I was like, really? Because that was like kind of like the height of Michael Shannon when he was really getting big, and I was really excited to see it. And it kind of just disappeared. I never saw it. A couple weeks ago, we were studying Andrew Garfield for trivia, Andrew and I, and he kind of like snaked me on this, so I didn't get to watch it. But it is what I definitely want to see.
Cameron Redshaw did the exact same thing to me. He took this one. But yeah. So now we will go over to Jack. Jack, favorite movie you watched?
Yeah, I've been watching a fair few horror movies this week, so it's been an unusual week for me. But the one that definitely stood above the rest out of all the ones I saw was The Babadook. Because my goodness, this movie's fantastic. The lead performance from I can't remember her name right now.
Essie Davis.
Essie Davis, yes, thank you. Essie Davis's performance in this is fantastic. And holy shit, what's her name? I can't remember. But the Babadook. So for those of you that don't know, the Babadook is about this mother and her son, who the kid's father had died in a car accident while they were on their way for the mom to give birth to their son, and they've never the mom especially has never gotten over has never gotten over that the trauma of that. And a book appears in their house called Mr. Babadook, and after they read it for the first time, they start to experience kind of these just really terrifying appearances by this shadowy figure. And the ending of this movie is phenomenal. It's one of my favorite endings in a horror movie I've ever, like, possibly my favorite ending in a horror movie. Where I'm gonna spoil this. I'm gonna spoil this movie a little bit. So if you don't want to hear the end, mute the thing for a little bit. But where the Babadook is still there. They haven't got rid of the Babadook because, like they say earlier in the movie, if it's in a word or in a look, you can't get rid of the Babadook. And they use the Babadook as kind of like a metaphor for depression and grief. And the thing is, and they don't get rid of the Babadook. They just have to learn to live with it. And I think that's a really interesting way to go about it, especially using it as a metaphor for grief. And I loved the ending. So yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the Babadook is excellent. I think one of the best uses of horror is horror as metaphor, right? Like some of the greatest horror movies of all time, the scary thing is not really meant to represent the scary thing, but something else. And the Babadook is absolutely a representation of grief. And I think that, yeah, no, this film is absolutely excellent and terrifying in a way that you don't really see. It's very terrifying in a kind of unique way. I like it. Kirk.
Yeah, I love this movie. I think it's great. It's a great horror movie. One of my favorite uses of horror are movies that blend supernatural horror and real world horror. And when you watch this movie, the main character, this poor woman's life, is basically a horror movie before anything supernatural happens. You know, she lost her husband. She's a single mom. Her son has all these severe behavioral issues that she's not able to really handle or deal with, and she's just completely end of her rope. And just, if that was the whole movie, it would be a horror movie, because you're just watching this poor woman desperately try to struggle through that. Then you throw the monster on top of that, and it just makes it so much worse. It's in a lot of ways, it's almost like a haunted house movie, because all basically just taking place in their house. And the cinematography is great, the way it's shot, the use of the Babadook itself, the character, the creature design, the way there's not a lot of jump scares, but there's a lot of those it just comes and it's there long enough just for you to see it kind of fades back, and it almost has this nightmarish quality to it. So yeah, this is a really, really strong. This is probably top 5 21st century horror movies.
Okay, Payson, you see this?
I have not, but I've heard great things. So
that's fair, Brian.
This is not my brand of horror. This is the kind of thing that Scream would refer to as elevated horror in Scream 2022. This in the A24 kind of things, and ones like this. I get people love it. It's just not my style of horror. So.
That's fair. Yeah. Was that everyone on the Babadook? I think so. Yeah. So now we will go to Kirk. Kirk. What's your least favorite movie you watched this week?
Least favorite movie I watched this week is a movie for this week is one I watched for the show, because I was hoping I could use it for the topic, because it is a remake, and it is 1990s Gloria. And this is a Sidney Lumet remaking John Cassavetes movies. So one of my all-time top 5 favorite directors remaking one of my all-time top 5 favorite directors. This should be great. I should love it, but it didn't turn out that way. It kind of sucks everything great about it that John Cassavetes made great, and Lumet really doesn't. You don't see in a million years, or 99. I'm sorry, yeah. In a million years, you would never think, just looking at this, that it was a Lumet movie. I read his book a couple years ago, and he said in it that he's done 3 movies just for the money. Didn't specify which movies they were. So ever since I've tried to guess which one they were, I think this is one of them, because he's sleepwalking through this. It looks like a TV movie, like a made-for-TV movie. The cast is bad. Sharon Stone's the main character, and Sharon Stone is no Gina Rowlands. In the original story is about a woman. She has some kind of criminal past. You're not sure. They really don't give you all the details. But she's kind of on her own. She's alone. This little boy, his family is killed because his dad has information on the mob. So he's the only one who escapes. He has the information, and he's kind of thrown in her lap. And she doesn't want him, but she has to take them. And the original movie is about their relationship developing, and you see that through that. And Gina Rollins is, like I said, she has these mob ties, but she carries so much through her performance that she doesn't really have. You really don't. The movie doesn't have to show you much. You just get so much from her, who she is as her character. I don't think Sharon Stone's really capable of that. So the rest of the movie has to do a lot of heavy lifting and show you. Here's her background. Here's her old boyfriend. Blah blah blah. And it just weakens the whole thing. And in the original, the whole story is about the relationship between her and this boy. First half of the remake, the little boy is basically just an obstacle for her to overcome. So later on, when they try to sell you the relationship, it feels really forced. And it was just a huge disappointment because I love the original so much. Obviously, love both directors. And could have been a lot better, but it wasn't.
All right. Has anyone here seen this?
I have not.
No, I've only heard Kirk talk about it in the debate match.
I'm just now trying to think, what are the other two?
That's fair. Who knows? Peyton, what is your worst movie you watched?
Yeah, this is one of the movies I saw, like Boatman alluded to. I see everything in theaters, and I went to go see Blacklight this week, starring Liam Neeson. Now, I've said it before, I'll say it again. There is an art to the Liam Neeson Dumpuary movie. There are good ones, Taken, Nonstop. There are a lot of bad ones. This might be his worst one. This movie just feels like it was just phoned in. Like, phoned into, like, an obsessive degree. Like, it starts out with, like, an assassination, but it's the most comical assassination, like, you'll ever see. Like, fuck it, I don't care. I'm gonna spoil the opening shot of this movie. It is a political, what am I saying? A political advocate, like, she's just walking down the street. Someone says, hey, come over here. She walks over to the car and she's like, what is it? And another car just comes and just books her. Like, she straight up does a 540 in the air. It's insane. This movie, like, has, like, too many subplots for its own good. It kind of drops, like, the main plot midway through just to follow this other thing. The climax is one of the dumbest, like, most poorly shot climaxes I've seen in a while, where the stakes never feel high. You could tell Liam Neeson is phoning in. Like, if you have never seen a shot of Liam Neeson running in, like, the past 5 years, do yourself a favor and watch one, because I feel so bad for the director trying to make it seem thrilling. Just this, like, 70-year-old man just, like, really tried to hobble, this movie's bad. I'm sorry.
Has anyone seen this yet?
I haven't, but I mean, those Liam Neeson movies, for all the shit that people give, like Bruce Willis and Nicolas Cage and some of these people for all their straight-to-VOD movies, Liam Neeson's no better. His just, for some reason, are still getting released to theaters. I mean, the last good one he made like that was probably released, 5+ years ago. Because, I mean, what made, like, Taken and some of those movies work were that, this wasn't what you expected from Liam Neeson. It's this guy, wow, he can kick ass. But ever since then, he's just kind of churning out, lesser and lesser copies of the same thing. By the time, even by Taken 3, there's this infamous scene where he's got to jump over a fence. Oh. And they do, like, 23 cuts just to show him jumping over the fence. It's like, they're pretty bad. So at this point, I don't even go see him anymore.
That is fair. Okay, well, now we'll go to me. We'll go to me. My worst movie I watched this week. I didn't watch anything bad this week. I watched one movie that I didn't love, but it was basically a giant mixed bag of a movie because it's an anthology movie. I am going with Jim Jarmusch's Night on Earth. I think this is far from a bad movie. There are some really great things about it. I gave it 3.5 stars, like, for the record. I think that the stuff with Gina Rollins and Winona Ryder is great. The stuff with Giancarlo Esposito is great. And the final segment in Russia is great. I just think there are two very segments. Specifically, I think Roberto Benigni's one is kind of bad. So that's kind of where it gets just weird. And I looked up the trivia after that. Apparently, Benigni improvised half of it. And honestly, you can tell. Because it gets weird for, frankly, the sake of weird. He talks about having sex with pumpkins. Like, yeah, that is an actual thing that happens in this movie.
Nope, not gonna go there.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Kirk, have you seen that other?
Yeah, I went through almost pretty much all Jarmusch last year for a match. I like this movie. I think it's pretty good. You're probably right. I think the Benini segment is the weakest. But the Winona Ryder Gina Rollins was great. The Giancarlo Esposito's was really good. So I think it's one of those ones like, with anthology movies, it's kind of like the Three Musketeers. Like, you don't like this, okay, here's something else for you. Just wait a while. And I think this has that going for it. I think there's more good than bad here.
Yes, I would agree. Payson, you seen this one?
Jarmusch is a director I really want to get more into. Specifically, Down by Law and Ghost Dog are the ones that really interest me. I have yet to
good.
Yeah.
Brian, you see this one? I
did see this one back in like 91, 92, simply because I was like obsessed with Winona Ryder at the time and was watching everything she was in. I remember nothing about it. I have not revisited it since because Jim Jarmusch, again, is, as you could guess, is not my style of thing. There have been movies like Ghost Dog. I don't remember much of that, but I do remember actually enjoying Ghost Dog. And I've seen good performances. Like I watched Dead Man. I like some of the things in that, but overall, he's not my kind of director.
Yeah, Jack.
I haven't seen it, but I really want to watch Down by Law.
That's fair. Down by Law is real good. Okay, let's go to Jack. Jack, what's your least favorite movie you watched this week?
Like I said, lots of horror movies, and one of those horror movies was Teton. It's not for me. I get people like this movie. Maybe I'll like it more on a rewatch if I ever rewatch it. But nah. The performances were all pretty. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. That's it.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. Brian, have you seen Teton?
I have not. Before I left Club Dread, I remember the last conversation was how much Ethan loved this movie, which already told me that I was not going to like it. So I never saw it.
That is fair. I definitely haven't seen Teton. Are you kidding? I'm Kaleb Boatman.
I have seen Teton. I'll be honest, I do really, really like it. But it's also a movie where, if someone tells me they don't like it, I'm just going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. It's not going to be for everyone. It is very much, it is so in your face. It is so just, overstimulating. But, I like it when films do that. I like it when movies go for it. And, yeah, I really like it, but I totally get why not everyone connects with it.
That's fair. Okay. Now, Brian? Oh, sorry. Oh, my bad.
No, I was going to say, I haven't seen it. I want to. I like a weird concept movie. I mean, I watched Rubber based on Jake Maragotti's recommendation. Sometimes I like them, sometimes I don't. The more I hear about this movie, I'm assuming I'm probably not going to like it that much. But out of morbid curiosity, I still want to see it.
That's fair. Okay. Brian?
I did enjoy Rubber. I just want to say that. I like that one.
Rubber spawned the greatest YLS moment of all time.
Oh, absolutely.
There, know exactly what it was.
Like Boatman, I didn't really watch any bad movies this week. But I'd say probably the least impressive one I watched this week and probably kind of disappointing was Studio 666. This is the Foo Fighters horror movie that just came out, basically. This is a movie that I'm surprised got a theatrical release, and I think they are too. I saw an interview with Dave Grohl where he was talking about how he had this idea for this fun little thing they could do, and next thing you know, they were giving him money to make a movie, and then they said they're putting it in theaters. He's like, "Really? It's a movie? He's like, "I didn't know we were doing this." And you can kind of tell because I think, like I said in my review, that if this would make a really good long form music video, like a half hour thing, just especially for fans of the band would probably just love it. But as a movie, it doesn't really work. There's some, cool horror moments. There's definitely some blood and gore into it, things like that. There's a few, funny jokes, but so much of it just feels like it's just being stretched out to fill the full length feature. And also, besides Dave Grohl is okay. The rest of the band, horrible actors. This is like if you grabbed your family and said, "Hey, let's be in a horror film. You guys can act, right?" It's just like even just trying to stand there and listen to someone talk, much less delivering lines and things, just really bad actors. So I mean, It's not an awful movie, and there are things to enjoy in it, but I was disappointed. I thought it'd be more fun.
Fair. Jack, you see this?
No, but I do like No Son of Mine by the Foo Fighters.
That's fair. Mason, you see
it's caught my eye. I'll probably still go see it, but it saddens me a little to hear it's not that great.
Kirk?
Haven't seen it. It doesn't look like it's something up my alley. It looks like one of those movies just like, hey, remember horror movies? Now we're doing the same thing, and wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And I heard too, like it's really for like Foo Fighters fans. It's like kind of like there's like a lot of like inside jokes. Like you have to be a Foo Fighters person to really fully get this movie. So, and that's not me. So, not that I don't like their music. I'm just not like a super fan.
No, that's fair. You haven't been listening to them ever long. I'm not funny. Anyway, so I believe that takes us home for least favorite movie to watch this week. Getting to the meat and potatoes of the show. Remakes. We're talking about them. Movies that used to be other movies, and now they're a new kind of movie. Let's start with. Well, we'll start with me. Why not? I'll start. I'll get the ball rolling. This one is one I'll throw out there. I promise I'm not throwing it out there just because it'll make Kirk mad. It is legitimately my favorite remake. But, making Kirk mad is a bonus. The remake, the superior version of Ocean's 11. I love this movie. I love this movie so much. I have sat through the original, and man, does this movie blow that one out of the water. I don't like the original. I think the original is kind of bad. I think this one is just so fun. I love the characters. I love Rusty. I love Linus. Livingston Dell basically is me. Frank Catton is great. I just love everyone in this movie, and I love how everyone kind of just gets their own great little moment. Even if they're not all the central focus, everybody gets at least like one great moment. I love Elliot Gould breaking down the 3 most successful robberies in the history of Vegas. That is like one of my favorite little things. Elliot Gould's an actor I'm finding I just love in like anything he does. I love Elliot Gould. But no, I think this movie is just so slick and so cool, and I love it. One of my favorite movies ever made. Payson.
Yeah, this is one of those movies that I think is like impossible not to love. Like it's just so much fun. Like just the pacing, the acting, the script, just the whole idea of the heist of like we're gonna rob these 3 casinos. Let's see how it goes. Terry Benedict, like I don't think Andy Garcia gets enough credit for being such like a scumbag in these movies. Like you want him to fail so bad, and you want Danny Ocean to succeed so much. I just think that's great. Like you said, Bo, I think Elliot Gould might be the most like underrated part of this cast. Like I love the character of Ruben. Like you said, Elliot Gould, pretty Elliot Gold for me. But I also love Carl Reiner as Ruben. I adore that.
I never enjoyed the sensation of steel on my skin.
So good. Brad Pitt, he's so cool. One of the coolest moments in cinema is when they're walking out with the money and just Rusty just so bad.
Without a doubt. Nobody eats in movies like Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt eating a bag of chips somehow just looks so cool.
And like that's the thing about this movie. Like I just think of this movie and it just exudes coolness. Like I just think of Danny just coming up that escalator, and it's like this movie's so good. I have not seen the original. I bet it's just a bunch of like, we're the Rat Pack. What's up? Rah, rah, rah. But yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Kirk. Speaking of the Rat Pack.
This movie has grown on me a little bit more on multiple rewatches. And now that I've seen all 3, it's definitely the best of the trilogy. But I still don't connect to it as much as everybody else does. I totally agree. Elliot Gould is great, and the more I watch him, the more I see him and stuff, the more I love him, and he's fantastic at this. I do like the original better. Because this one just like, hey, I'm Brad Pitt, I'm George Clooney, look how cool we are. But I just think that I still think Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin are cooler than George Clooney, and they always will be. So, but if you guys like it, that's cool.
They don't do anything in the movie. They're boring.
It's
one take.
Jack.
One movie. Paying up for one movie. Only need one take.
Okay.
I do like this. I do like this movie. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember this movie being a hell of a lot of fun. I remember really loving Brad Pitt in this movie and George Clooney. But if Brad Pitt eating a bag of chips is like the coolest, is like one of the coolest looking things of someone eating something in a movie, John Noble eating tomatoes in Return of the King is the polar opposite of it.
That's fair. I will respect any take about Return of the King. That's not positive for those who looked on Twitter recently. Brian.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for a good heist movie, and this is one of the best ones out there. I will admit, I also have never seen the original. I've considered it a few times, but never got around to it. Payson was right. This movie just exudes cool. That's one of the best things about it. Just that it's got that Soderbergh feeling, like around that era, like with Out of Sight and Ocean's 11. Soderbergh just had these movies that kind of exuded cool. I love the cast they assembled, not just because they're all talented actors, but there's just such a variety of characters thrown into this mix together. Because you have obviously like Clooney and Pitt and Damon. You have the elder statesmen, the Golden and Carl Reiner, but then you have like the younger idiots with like Scott Conn and Casey Affleck, who are some of my favorite scenes of the movies. So it's just a great mix. It's one of those movies you watch and you can just tell they had a lot of fun making it, and I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Okay, was that everyone on Ocean's 11? I think so. Okay, Payson, we'll throw it to you. Your first pick.
You know what? We're going to keep the streak going because you know what remake I'm picking? I'm picking The Departed. I love this movie. It's not like top 5 Scorsese for me. Like I know a lot of people put it, but like in terms of remakes, like I absolutely adore this film. I have not seen Infernal Affairs. I hear it is great. I'm just talking about The Departed. To me, The Departed is like you give a crime procedural to one of the best directors ever, and you just say, make the best movie you can, and he straight up does. Every single cast member is given their chance to shine in this movie, from the big people like Leo and Damon to like the small supporting roles like Ray Winstone. I adore Frenchie in this movie. All the little scenes in it. The cranberry juice scene is like top 10 Scorsese scenes of all time. Everything that Mark Wahlberg says, you can put on a shirt. It's so good. It's 2.5 hours, and honestly, it flies by for me. Like I do not feel the runtime at all. And honestly, Scorsese is usually a director I think is really good with that, with making just long runtimes flow by. Yeah, I really do just love the whole intersecting, like the opposite sides of the two contrasting stories between Colin and Billy, how they're spying on different people. Like, I love this movie. Boston's always a fun place to set a movie, and yeah, it's excellent.
Absolutely. I'll jump in. I love The Departed. I think this movie just has such like an amount of energy that I just love. This movie just feels like a firecracker sometimes, and I think it's great. Nicholson is like giving one of the great like madman gangster performances, and I love him in this. I think he's incredible. I think he's better than Wahlberg. I think that the entire supporting cast is great. Obviously, DiCaprio and Damon are both great in that, you know, Damon's always they kind of play on the fact that Damon always kind of plays a good guy. So like having him play like the good guy who you can't quite trust is great. And DiCaprio being the heavy, being the bad guy who you can't trust to not actually be good. I think it's just great. And the kind of overarching who's playing who is just fascinating. And I love all the supporting performances in this. Martin Sheen, in particular, is like I love him in this movie because you can kind of see he's almost a bit of a surrogate dad to Costigan in some ways, while he also cares very much about actually getting this data and nailing Costello. But I love everyone in this movie. I think it's excellent. We'll go to last. Brian, how do you feel about The Departed?
I'm not a Scorsese fan, generally speaking. But of the movies he has made that I do like, that I do enjoy, this is my favorite of his. I have seen the original Infernal Affairs, and I actually think it's very good. I love that movie, but this is actually still an improvement over that. It comes down to the performances across the board, especially Jack, Martin Sheen, and Leonardo DiCaprio. I think do the best jobs. I think Mark Wahlberg is probably the weak link of the bunch, but that might be skewed in my eyes just in the fact that all those Boston accents maybe stick something in my ears. Picking that for 2.5 hours is a bit much. But yeah, I mean, this for a director I don't like to make me just really love a movie. I think I gave like 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this one.
That's fair, Jack.
Yeah, I love this movie. This movie's in my top 100 of all time. I really adore this movie. Jack Nicholson has got to be my favorite performance in this movie, without question. He's fantastic in it. Like, not his best performance, but like it's up there with the performances of his that I've seen. It's fantastic. I love it. I really want to see more Scorsese and a lot more Jack Nicholson.
That's fair, Kirk.
Yeah, it's not terrible. I mean, it's appropriate we're talking about on a remake show because it feels like a remake. It makes total sense that as someone who doesn't like Scorsese, Brian likes this, because I'd be like, if you don't like Scorsese, watch this because it's nothing like his other movies. Not nearly as good as any of them either. That's what blows my mind. People who like Scorsese put this at the top. That makes no sense. Yeah, Nicholson's good in this. Sheen's good in this. I can't believe Wahlberg got nominated because he's straight up terrible. And it's not just his acting, his character. He is playing just like that stereotypical hard ass for the sake of being a hard ass cop that is in every dumb cop movie, and it just sucks. Mia Farmiga is awful. Her accent comes and goes, not scene to scene, but sentence to sentence. I've never seen someone do such a inconsistent accent. I mean, that's the whole movie. Everybody's inconsistent with the accents in this movie, but she's the worst example of it. Yeah, and again, like Boatman's talking about the energy. When you compare this to some other Scorsese movies, that energy is just not here. It's a cop movie. It's a run of the mill, above average cop movie.
You don't think the energy is there?
Mm-mm.
Wow. Okay.
Kirk, save yourself. Give us your first pick.
Well, it's my turn. Reading my Boatman's review for my pick, it's my turn to piss him off because my pick is the superior version 1983 Scarface. And I say that jokingly because I will admit I haven't seen the original, so I can't compare the two, so I won't comment on that. But I love Scarface. I think this is a fantastic movie. I know a lot of people think it's cheesy and over the top, and it is, and it's supposed to be. And Pacino is just like completely knows what movies he's in. He knows what he's doing. I know a lot of people complain about him doing the accent and everything. But if you like look into it, like he was working with like Cuban Americans, including Stephen Bauer as co-star, to make sure he got that right. And he wanted it to be authentic. He didn't want it to just be a caricature. And he plays it so big and so boisterous that it does kind of feel like that sometimes. But I think that's beyond the voice. I think that's the performance itself. But it fits so well with this movie, just like that over the top, like sleazy lifestyle. But I love the character too, because like he's this horrible, irredeemable person, but there's still things about him you like. Like they set up the ending with the kids. Like when he just sit at the beach, his face like, "Hey, watch this guy, watch you. He's gonna, ask her, tell her to lick her lips or something like that." And just those little moments he has, like the moments with him in Elvira in the car and him playing with the hat. Like he's a fun, likable guy, but he's also just like this sociopathic murderer. And he's so good at it, and it's long. But I think the whole thing is just overindulgent. I think that's the whole theme of the movie is just overindulgence, and that all plays into it. And I understand it's not for everybody, it's not everybody's alley. But I have so much fun with the movie every time I watch it.
I'll jump in. I don't think this is bad. I don't think Scarface is a bad movie. I think it's a bloated movie. I think it is a movie that is so full that I think there is a lot of things that work, but it's a long, bloated movie. And I think for everything that works, there's another thing that doesn't work. It is a film of excess that doesn't feel like fun after a while. After a while, I just got tired. I think I will say it probably didn't help that I saw the original first, and the original is like 90 minutes compared to this one, which is over 2 hours, which is like 2.5 hours. I think it's like pushing 3 actually. So that doesn't help. I enjoy the original. I think the original is a lot of fun. But I only think it's like a 0.5 star difference. So like it's not like a giant like whoa. But I do think the original's better. Payson, thoughts on Scarface?
I've never actually seen Scarface. It's a huge blind spot, I'll admit it. So I don't have an opinion here. I know it's a little bit contentious. I wish I could weigh in, but I can't.
That's fair. Brian?
Yeah, I've not been secret about that, mafia, mobster, gangster movies are not my kind of movie, which seems to be a theme tonight. But Scarface may be one of the worst. I think it's because, like Kirk says, I mean, yes, he's completely over the top. He does come across as a caricature, and maybe that's not what's his intention. Maybe that's what he was playing for. I don't know. But for me, this movie did not work. As much as I like everyone in the cast, I like Al Pacino and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio and Michelle Pfeiffer and Robert Loggia and all these people, but just this movie did not work for me.
All right, Jack.
I've seen Scarface, and I really liked it. I thought it was great. I thought Pacino was fantastic. I get people's issues with the movie, but like I had a really good time with it. Yeah, Pacino's great. Haven't seen the original, but I want to.
That's fair. Payson, you already talked about it. Everybody's talked about it. Okay, now we will go to Brian. Brian, what's your first pick for remake?
Oh, I had a lot I considered for this, and I'm still not sure. I decided to go with some movies I maybe haven't talked about so much because I've been on a lot of shows and top 100 lists and things like that. Almost considered talking about Oscar just because I know how much Payson loves it. Decided not to go with that one because that is a remake of a French film.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I know that would have been a fun discussion, but I decided, as I've talked about that one enough. Thomas Crown Affair. People know that I love John McTiernan movies, and that one especially. I've talked about that several times before. One I haven't talked about as much is 1989 film Steven Spielberg's Always. So Always is a remake of a 1940s film directed by Victor Fleming called A Guy Named Joe, which stars Spencer Tracy. Which I've seen that one since. I had not seen it before Always, but I've seen it since, and that's actually a very good movie. But Always is one of those movies. It's not top tier Spielberg. Even I don't consider it top tier Spielberg as much as I enjoy the movie, because it's not like this amazing dramatic thing like Schindler's List or something, and it's not a big blockbuster like Indiana Jones or things like that. But this is just kind of a small scale, like sweet love story kind of movie. I mean, there's a supernatural element to it, but it's basically a love story. Richard Dreyfuss plays.
Someone's echoing.
Sorry. Richard Dreyfuss plays a pilot who basically he helps put out forest fires, and him and John Goodman are kind of best friends, and his girlfriend, fiance, whatever, is Holly Hunter. And this is Holly Hunter coming fresh off of like broadcast news, so she's like at the height of her career. Richard Dreyfuss has already had a great success. John Goodman is still kind of up and coming, but had just been like raised in Arizona and some other things. So they assembled this great cast together. Richard Dreyfuss' character dies, but basically his ghost sticks around. It's kind of like it's similar kind of to Ghost in some ways, but this is more of a lighthearted. It's pure romance. It's pure comedy. There's no villains unless you count the fire that's burning down forests, things like that. There's a love story where there's a new guy shows up to become a pilot. His name is played by Brad Johnson, who Richard Dreyfuss finds that he can kind of influence him, and he's falling in love with Holly Hunter, and he kind of doesn't want to see her fall in love with someone new, but at the same time he has to let go. And it's a whole big complicated plot, but basically what it comes down to is the performances. It's just a sweet movie. It's got great relationships between the main characters, and for Steven Spielberg, it's kind of something different. He doesn't do a lot of just like love stories, and so that's why I enjoyed this movie.
That's fair. Jack, on always.
This is one of the Spielberg movies I haven't seen. It's in my watch list. I want to see it eventually, but I just haven't.
That's fair. I'll go. I think this one is fine. I don't think it's a bad movie. I think this is a movie that is carried on the backs of the actors. I think Richard Dreyfuss, John Goodman, and Holly Hunter, you could probably just stick them in a room for 2 hours.
True.
And it would be entertaining because I think they're just three of the most entertaining people to watch. I just think the movie around it is, and I'll admit my ignorance, I didn't know this was a remake. I was not aware that this was a remake, and I really want to see the original now. Spencer Tracy in that role sounds real interesting.
Oh, and I forgot to mention Audrey Hepburn's last performance in this movie too.
Yeah, and she's good. But Payson.
I have not seen this.
That's fair. Kirk.
I've seen it. I like it. I was surprised. Like I was looking on Letterboxd. Like a lot of people trash this as like Spielberg's worst by far. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's run of the mill. My biggest hang up with this is like I just have a lot of trouble like Richard Dreyfuss is good, a good actor, good comedic actor. I have trouble buying him as like a hardcore romantic lead. Like that just doesn't seem like feel like his wheelhouse. I think John Goodman is great in this. I think this is the kind of character that he really excels in, especially in this era of his career. Just play like that boisterous, like over the top best friend is really strong for him. And yeah, you brought up Audrey Hepburn. Just having kind of like really become a fan of hers lately. Watching this, and this not just being her last role, but the kind of character she plays. She plays like the guardian angel that's overseeing Richard Dreyfuss after she dies, and just that role knowing it's her the last time she was on screen is really poignant and makes it like a lot more emotional. So yeah, I think it's a good pick.
That's fair. That everyone for always? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we'll go over to Jack. Jack, what's your first pick?
I'm torn between a couple because I think that one's gonna probably be Kirk's next pick, but I'll go with one that I watched for Logged It actually a few months ago. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I think that
78.
Pardon?
I assume 78.
Yeah, 78.
Not the Daniel Craig one.
I haven't seen that one. Yeah, no, I think this movie's phenomenal. I love Donald Sutherland. Yeah, Donald Sutherland in the lead role. I think he's a fantastic actor in this movie. Leonard Nimoy shows up in this movie. I had no idea that he was even a part of it until I saw it. But no, it's fantastic. It's a perfect psychological horror film. It's got one of my favorite endings. Which one do I like more? I think I like the ending of the Babadook a little more, but this is up there with it for horror movie endings. So yeah, very good movie.
Yeah, I also watched it for the first time for Logged It, and no, this is excellent because it's a horror movie that almost doesn't feel like a horror movie as much as it feels like a conspiracy thriller. Like this is a movie where the 70s is just absolutely the perfect time to remake this movie, right? Because like the 50s version, I haven't seen the 50s version, but from everything I've heard about the 50s version, from what I understand, it's kind of this thinly veiled allegory for like communism. And okay. But this one is like just it has that 70s like paranoia thriller feel of like something like The Conversation or Parallax View, but it's a sci-fi horror movie. And the cast is like really good. Like everyone in this movie is great. Leonard Nimoy is fantastic in this movie. He's really good. Jeff Goldblum. I mean, Jeff Goldblum. Come on. Everyone's great. Everyone's great here. Talked about this movie on Logged It before, but go ahead.
Yeah, to echo the sentiment again, I talked about it on Logged It. I think it's really good. I think the 70s might be my favorite decade for horror. I love the desolate feeling of it. I think what you said about it sort of being like a conspiracy theorist movie is really, really interesting. It kind of feels, in a way, like they live without the action. But yeah, I really, really enjoy this movie.
Okay. Kirk.
I watched this when I was a kid. I remember it being on TV when I was a little kid, and the dog with the human head, the human face, scarred me so bad that it took, like, as an adult, it took me a long time to get back to the movie because I did not want to see that. But yeah, I like this. I like the original. The original's fun. It's like a fun, it leans more sci-fi, like one of those 50s sci-fi movies. Kevin McCarthy's really good in it. But yeah, this is a completely different movie, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, everything you guys said about it being more like conspiratorial and just like stuff bubbling under the surface. That's all true.
Good thing Mars Attacks didn't exist when you were a kid. Brian.
Yeah, I watched this one, I don't know, probably about 7 years ago. I just came across it on TV, and I watched it, and it was fine. I think for me, the problem is that at that point, I'd seen so many different versions of this movie. I mean, there's the direct remakes and all the ones that are kind of remakes of it, and ones that are knockoffs of it, and so many. But by the time I watched this one, I'm kind of like, okay, it was another one. And I mean, yeah, I like the cast, and I like Sutherland, I like Goldblum in it, and some of the other people. But didn't love it, didn't hate it. It was there.
That's fair. Okay, now we will go to our second picks. I'm going to go with another movie that not everyone knows. It's a remake. It's a remake of a French film, I believe. And I'm going with Billy Wilder's classic, Some Like It Hot. Some Like It Hot is one of the greatest comedies ever made, in my opinion. Like, this movie is just brilliant. Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis are just like a top-tier comedic duo in movies. They knock it out of the park in this movie. They know how to work each other and how to like push each other's buttons in exactly the right way, but they still feel like friends, and it's just so great. And I'm not going to pretend like she was one of the greatest actresses of all time, but Marilyn Monroe has like an air of vulnerability in this movie that is so perfect for Sugar King. Like that, she is exactly the perfect person. This is just, I think, the perfect person in the perfect role for them. She just is absolutely made for this movie. I love Joey Brown as Osgood Fielding. Just like the perfect, just kind of like optimist. And I mean, the final scene with him and Jack Lemmon is just legitimately one of the funniest interactions you'll ever see in a movie. I love when Tony Curtis, I think, is the best performance in this movie by far, because he's doing so many different things. One, I think, his normal self, he's doing like kind of the normal douchey thing, and I think it works. I think in terms of who's better at like convincingly and being funny as a woman, Tony Curtis is so funny as a woman in this. And then when he's doing the shell guy, he is hilarious doing this Cary Grant voice, and it's amazing. He has, I think, the most complex job in this movie. He's great. I love Some Like It Hot. Basically.
Yeah, I watched this for the first time for Full Metal Deep Cuts, and it might be like top 3 or 5 favorite movies I've ever watched for trivia. Like, this is you hear this touted as one of the greatest comedies of all time. It absolutely deserves that like title. Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis are so great together as both, like, through like their dumb moments, and even with Tony Curtis, like, who's like slightly smarter than Jack Lemmon. Just them just trying to get through. Something I think that goes underappreciated in this movie is the characters' names. Like, you have characters named like Spats Columbo and Osgood Felding III. Like, these are some of the most creative and like memorable character names I can think of. And just that first scene when they first see Spats Columbo killing people, and it's like, oh, we gotta go get him. And just the final scene in the boat. Just, well, nobody's perfect. Yeah, like Jake said, one of the greatest, like, final lines in a movie ever, and just I'm not sure where it ranks among my like favorite Billy Wilder movies. I think it's got to be up there, and this movie just absolutely holds up.
Hey, Kirk.
I feel like we talked about this. I've talked about a lot on panels lately. But yeah, it's great comedy. You talked about Jack Lemmon, how he can do anything. Like he literally can't do anything wrong. You go something from something like China Syndrome to this or this to China Syndrome, I guess. But just the comedy, he just kills it. Like you said, Marilyn Monroe, Billy Wilder talked a lot about how hard she was to work with. But he definitely got the best on her because she has some like really good like one-liners in this movie, just like kind of deadpan, just off the cuff one-liners that she nails. Yeah, it's a great cast. It's a fun, like that third act is fun with the chase and everything. Wilder, for me personally, I lead more towards his more dramatic movies than his comedies. But as far as his comedies go, it's definitely top tier.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah, Some Like It Hot is a fun movie. Billy Wilder, I haven't seen a ton of his movies, but I've kind of seen like all the most popular ones, and this is probably one of my favorites of his. There's the whole like the cross-dressing comedy. I've never been a big fan of that in movies. I don't find it that funny. It's kind of the easy laugh. But here, I mean, it works. I will say those aspects of it are kind of my least favorite of the movie, but there's enough of it, and the way they play it off, because like I like kind of like that farcical kind of mistaken identity kind of thing as in things like Oscar. So I mean, so that kind of comedy I do like when kind of the hijinks take place then. So while it's not like my favorite comedy of all time or anything like that, I really enjoy this one.
That's fair, Jack.
This may not be one of Brian's all-time favorite comedies, but this is my second favorite comedy of all time, and third favorite Wilder, and I love this movie. It's great. Jack Lemmon is phenomenal. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know it was a remake. If I knew it was a remake, I would have picked it. It's great. One of the best final lines in any movie ever, like Jake said in the live chat there. But I cannot tell you how many times I've like after coming home from work, open the fridge and use the line, "Where's that bourbon?" That is like a regular line for me when I get home. It's great. No, great movie. Marilyn Monroe's great. Tony Curtis is great. I love Jack Lemmon in this movie so much.
That's fair. Okay. Well, now we'll go back to Payson. Payson, what is your pick?
Yeah, I'm going to be on brand. I'm going to be taking a Coen Brothers film. That film being 2004's The Late. I got you, didn't I? No, I am of course taking the correct pick, as you should say. Yeah, thank you, True Grit. I've actually seen the original True Grit. Not that good. I'm just going to come out and say it. It is a movie that I think is probably most well known. This is what got John Wayne his Oscar. Not that great aside from that. I think this movie is better in every single conceivable fashion. I think it flows better. I think the performances are better. I think Haley Steinfeld is unbelievable, and the fact that she didn't win Best Supporting Actress this year is insane. She was placed in Supporting Actress, I'm just saying, even though she's probably a lead. I think Jeff Bridges, like, aside from maybe the dude in The Big Lebowski, this might be the part he was born to play the most, as just this old curmudgeon, like, good-for-nothing bounty hunter that's just like, yeah, sure, I'll do it if you pay me, and just Maddie just shit-talking him, like, the first time they meet, and, like, you totally, like, just the fact that this is, like, the best she can do, it's like, oh, man, are they going to be able to do this? And, of course, I know Matt Damon gets a lot of shit for this. Like, a lot of people don't really like his performance. I don't really have an issue with it. I guess he looks a little too clean for the whole Western thing. I think it works personally when you contrast him with Bridges. I think Brolin is often forgot about in this movie, and I guess I kind of get it because he shows up like halfway through, but I think him as Tom Chaney is really, really good, and just like when you first meet him, you're kind of built up to think like, oh man, Tom Chaney's probably like this big scary guy, like that killed the main character's dad. But no, he's kind of pathetic as well. And yeah, I think just how Rooster grows through this journey, just like Maddie does, I think is really great. I think it's one of the Coens' most commercial movies, but I still think it has like their memorable dialogue in there. I think of I'm gonna misquote it. Never mind. But yeah, I really, really do love this movie.
That's fair. Kirk.
Yeah, this is a great pick. I agree. This is better than the original in all ways, except Robert Duvall is superior to Barry Pepper.
Yes.
But other than that, yeah, this is. I mean, you have that amazing Deacon cinematography in this. You have the score, which is so good. Yeah, Steinfeld is so great. Was this her first movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, just to her coming out of the gate like this, so good. Just that mature character she plays. The fact that her relationship with Rooster and her having kind of be the adult in a lot of situations, and like kind of guide him is so good. Bridges is great at this. I think he's kind of like fallen into this thing where like this is the character he plays, like if not all the time, most of the time, at least with that voice and everything. But it's just really feels sincere and right in this movie. So yeah, I was really taken aback with this. I watched this, wasn't expecting much from it, and this is my top. If it's not my favorite Codes, it's top 2.
That's fair. I just to kind of piggyback on what you said about the kind of voice and everything. Cody has pointed out that a lot of times once actors win an Oscar, they kind of, for a certain part, they kind of just play that part for the rest of their career. I feel like Crazy Heart, Bridges has kind of just been doing variations of that for like the rest of his career since then. I love True Grit. This is a great pick. I hope Payson would make it so I can give a little bit of a thing. Yeah, no, True Grit's fantastic. The ending, like I think the main
is so good.
The ending of the original is not a bad ending, I guess, but when you've seen the remake, it feels like one. Actually, no, I will say the ending of the original is bad because I think it completely, like, it condones everything that happens, whereas the remake it's a very complicated ending because revenge is a complicated thing, whereas the original is a very simplified, happy ending. I think that everything you said about cast, I'll pick on Matt Damon a little bit. I think he is completely out of place in this movie, and that's the point. It is a performance that is meant to feel like LaBouffe is in over his head. He's the type of guy who isn't supposed to feel like a real cowboy, and I think that works. I love this movie. Also, just looks gorgeous. Like, obviously, it's Deacons, but just looks gorgeous. Brian.
Sorry, muted. I only saw this movie once, like back when it first came out. I do remember enjoying it quite a bit. I don't really have a whole lot new to add to the conversation because you guys kind of covered everything. Jeff Bridges, one of my favorite actors. Haley Steinfeld killed it on her first thing out. Coen brothers, I tend to gravitate towards their comedies. I don't get into their dramas so much, but this one was very good.
That's fair. Jack.
I haven't seen as many Coen Brothers movies as I would like, but this is currently my second favorite of their movies. It's fantastic. I think Jeff Bridges is phenomenal in this film. I think Haley Steinfeld should have won supporting actress since she was in that category, even though she should have been in lead. But she gives a fantastic debut performance. That's her first film, and so yeah, no. Great movie. It was on my list of movies I could bring up. So, yeah, good pick.
That's fair. Is that everyone for True Grit? I think so. So we will move on now to Kirk, your next pick.
Okay. Jack, I'm going to let you take the one that you thought I was going to pick because there's another movie I want to talk about. I'm going with a movie that definitely, I think we can all agree if you've seen them both, improves on the original. I'm going to go with 1988's The Blob. The original Blob is boring and weird. It's basically just drive-in fodder. You barely see the blob, and when you do, it's more adorable than scary. It's just like very obviously like little things of jelly sliding across the room. Steve McQueen's in it. He's playing a teenager. He looks like he's 40. For some reason, he's wearing his wedding ring through the whole movie, which is really distracting. It has this really weird poppy theme song that you would expect from a movie like this. The Blob the 88 just improves on it so much. It takes the horror up to 11. A lot of great practical effects with Blob. A lot of really gory kills, and the cast is solid. It's Kevin Dillon and Shawnee Smith, who aren't great thespians, but they're perfect for movies like this. Brian used the term elevated horror. This definitely isn't elevated horror, but it basically takes like that drive-in movie concept and says, "Hey, let's make a real movie out of that." The story has a little more depth to it. It has a little bit of a twist at the end. It makes it a little more poignant, and just the way things are set up, like the town. It's just like one of those really cool like town versus the horror type of movies, which I like. And the town is kind of a character, and it's a really cool opening shot where the town is just completely desolate. There's nothing there, and you're like, it's really ominous and scary. It's like has like this autumn like suburban vibe to it. You're going through the town. It feels almost like Halloween. And then you pan over and everybody's at the football game, and it just like the whole town, like it tells you so much about the town just in those few minutes. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think I watched this. I did watch it for your YLS, but I watched it before that just because I wanted to see it. Because I'd watched the original, and I was really surprised how much better this was. And this is really good horror movie.
That is fair. Let's go to Jack. You seen this?
No, but I've heard nothing but good things about it.
Brian?
I have. I mean, of all the horror films come out, it's a surprise this one gets as much credit as it does. To me, it's fine. It was like a typical. It's another one of the throwaway horror films in the '80s. It was fine for what it was. I mean, Kevin Dillon's your lead. You're not asking too much from the acting, but it was okay. I'm mostly just shocked that Kirk not only likes this movie, but gave it 4 stars, which if you have your conversion charts handy, that's like 8 stars for a normal person. So
yeah.
I'm just shocked that of all the movies that we've talked about tonight, that's the 4-star movie for Kirk.
4 stars, like 52 on your top 100 for a normal person.
Yeah. Payson, you seen The Blob?
I've seen the original, not good. I have not seen the remake.
That is fair. I've seen The Blob, not the movie, the X-Men Origins Wolverine scene with the Blob. Anyway, now we'll go to Brian. Brian, your pick.
All right, so there were a few years in the early 2010s where they decided to remake every 80s movie ever made. I mean, they had Total Recall and RoboCop and Red Dawn and The Thing and Karate Kid and Conan and Clash of the Titans and Annie and so many others. Footloose, I'm not going to pick, even though Cameron wants me to. I enjoy that movie. I'm going to say up front, Cameron knows I love that movie. I think it's even better than the original. As much as I want to talk about that one, though, I am going to talk about Fright Night.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to spoil it.
No, it's fine. These are not. I'm not picking like what I think are the best remakes of all time. Just movies I want to talk about that I really enjoy. The original 1985, I believe, Fright Night. It was fun. I mean, in its own 80s cheese tastic kind of way. Roddy McDowell was good in the role. Chris Sarandon as the vampire, he was nice and intimidating. But it was very 80s. And this is the kind of movie that I think is ripe for a remake because you can do like an updated version, but it's not like one of those ones that people hold in such esteem that you shouldn't remake this film. So I had high hopes going in for it. You got Anton Yelchin starring. You got Toni Collette as his mom. You have Colin Farrell as the vampire. Christopher Mintz-Plasse as Evil Ed, his friend who becomes a vampire. The MVP of this movie, I think, though, however, is David Tennant, who takes the Roddy McDowell role. This time, he's not playing like a late-night TV show host. He's like a Vegas magician, kind of a Chris Angel kind of guy. And they go to him basically to figure out how to defeat this vampire. And he just plays that movie so fun. He plays like this rock star guy, but he's also kind of tries to have this dark image to him and everything. So he's a ton of fun in this movie. I think that the actual horror of it, I think, is done very, very well. That whether it be the special effects and the gore and the blood and thing, or even just the kind of the sense of horror and dread they have going for it. I think Anton Yelchin, who didn't play lead in a lot of big budget films, he was mostly supporting films or like leads in independent films. I think he did a great job here. And to have people like Toni Collette and Colin Farrell, who you wouldn't expect them to show up in this 80s horror remake, but they kind of add a little bit of credibility to it. And I just thought this was a movie that was a lot of fun, and I think people don't give enough credit. And most people I know who have actually watched it have really enjoyed it.
Fair. Jack, you seen this?
I have not, but David Tennant's in it, so I'm gonna watch it eventually.
Fair. Kirk, you see this?
I have not seen it. I've seen the original, and just looking at the cast and who they cast in the different roles, I think is really interesting. So I'm intrigued. I want to check this out.
Payson?
I have not seen either.
I have also not seen this.
Okay then.
Okay. Well, you sold me at least. Jack, take us home. What's your final pick for remakes?
Kirk had a 4-star movie for his, but I found one that's 4.5, and it's The Thing.
Hey.
Yeah, it's this movie's fantastic. Like I had always heard this is one of the greatest horror movies ever, and I always was like yeah, like it looks good. Holy shit, this is one of my favorite movies I watched last year for the first time. It's incredible. Kurt Russell gives a fantastic performance. He's great in this movie. It's got some of the most intense scenes I've ever seen in my life in a movie, like the blood test, which is just brilliant. I love that scene so much. But yeah, no. Honestly, it makes me want to watch a lot more John Carpenter. So yeah, I love this movie, and I'm probably going to rewatch it fairly soon.
Brian.
I'm in the vast minority here. I know this. I know everyone loves The Thing, and I enjoy The Thing. I think it is a good movie that just gets a little overpraised, in my opinion. I think that Kurt Russell and the whole cast is really good in it. I think the practical effects everyone praises, I think they look like bad 80s practical effects. I've never understood why people hold these in such esteem. I mean, they're fine for the time, but they weren't. I didn't think anything better than I'd seen in other movies. So I mean, this is a movie that I get why people enjoy it. I just don't enjoy it as much as everyone else seems to.
That is fair. Okay. Well, let's go to Kirk. How do you feel about The Thing?
Yeah. Like Jack said, this is a 4.5-star movie for me, and I'm glad I guessed right because I'd have been sad if this didn't get talked about. So I'm glad he picked it. This is fantastic. I think the thing about the effects is not just how they look, but just how completely off the hook they are. Like how there's just no rules to anything, and anything can become anything. It almost has like that like Lovecraftian cosmic horror look to it, where it's like it just terrifying beyond anything you could imagine. Just the shape things take and the way things change. It's just disgusting and beautiful. And just the claustrophobia you get with this, and just that setting again, it's like one of those things where it's like it's almost a horror. Just being there is a horror movie. Like you walk outside and you're going to die. Like the outside is going to kill you already, and then you throw this on top of it. The cast is great. Keith David, Wilford Brimley again. Bring him up. The whole supporting cast is so good. It's just so much fun to watch. Just the blood test scene is good. The scene with the dogs, just so many iconic scenes. It's a fantastic. It's my top, one of my favorite horror movies, one of my favorite sci-fi movies.
Payson?
No, this movie's amazing. I saw this movie for the first time in theaters, and I was just completely blown away the entire time. I think the tension that you feel at all times when you realize there's an alien with them, just knowing like anyone can be the monster, just really like makes you like it makes you aware at all times. I think the effects are great just because like that was there. Like, they made that. Like you see those, and it's like, dang, someone did that. And I just think that is really, really cool. The cast all work great together. One of the best character introductions, like, ever. Cody talks about it all the time. Just meeting McCready, he's playing chess. He loses it. He just throws the keyboard, just saying, cheating bitch. But yeah, the score is great. The setting is great. This movie's amazing.
This is one of those movies that I think it's a purely seasonal movie, and that I think you should only watch it when it's cold. I think this is a movie that is greatly enhanced. It's a movie that when you watch it and it's cold outside, because this movie looks cold. Like, I get chills, like, literally feel cold watching this movie. It is like just so cold, for lack of a better word, but it's great. Kurt Russell, fantastic. I love Keith David. Keith David is like a top tier character actor for me, and he's fantastic. I love Keith David. Yeah, this is my favorite Carpenter. Just an excellent, like, paranoia monster movie. And those tend to be the best horror movies. So, yeah. Well, that takes us home for remakes. Just to recap, we've got Ocean's 11, The Departed, Scarface, Always, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Some Like It Hot, True Grit, The Blob, Fright Night, and The Thing. So, before we go, though, we have one last thing. We got the movie of the month. It's Nobody this month. I'll apologize right now. I had a busy week. We didn't get this movie till late. I didn't get a chance to watch it. I'll be here like the whole month, though, so I'll have it next week for you. Payson, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I was able to watch this movie, and I had fun. This is kind of a run-of-the-mill, like, revenge story in a way. Yeah, obviously the movie is Nobody with Bob Odenkirk. In case anyone doesn't know, it's about a guy. Yeah?
Nope, you're good.
Okay. Guy gets his house broken into. Turns out he's an ex-FBI agent, and he goes crazy and just decides to, like, take his sort of mediocre life and turn it into something. But no, I think the action scenes were really, really fun. Like, this movie is gruesome. If you saw my Letterboxd review, it just says death by stapler. Not to spoil a scene in this, but there is a death scene that involves a stapler, which was incredible. But yeah, I quite enjoyed that. What, Boatman?
You're fine. Kirk, thoughts on Nobody?
I had a lot of fun with this movie. I like this. It takes, like, the Taken or the John Wick trope of, like, this guy who's secretly normal seeming guy who's secretly this, trained killer. What I like better about this one, though, with this different, is, like, he's not untouchable. Like, he takes a beating, and I think that just adds so much to it. Like, he's a normal guy who just happens to have these skills. And just the scene on the bus where, like, he's kind of getting his butt kicked, but he's also, like, kicking butt himself. And it's just a lot of fun. I love Christopher Lloyd in this. As his dad is just the relationship and, like, kind of like the backstory, the world building they do there. And is it the RZA that's their partner? Is he in this?
Yeah, RZA.
Yeah. He's really good. And there's a moment with Christopher Lloyd where it feels like they set it up as, like, a very, like, tired action movie trope. You're like, okay, this is going to happen, and then they completely turn it on its head, and that's probably my favorite part of the movie. But yeah, it's a thrill ride. It's a fun movie.
That's fair. Jack?
Yeah, no, I saw this movie. I finished it about 30 minutes before hopping on call with all of you today, and it's really fun. It's a really fun movie. I think Christopher Lloyd's fantastic. I love Bob Odenkirk in pretty much everything, but unhinged Bob Odenkirk may be my favorite version of Bob Odenkirk. While the screenplay in this is a little rough at times, that's not really the make or break for this movie. What is the action, and the action in this movie is fantastic. And so is the soundtrack. But I want to say one of probably my favorite scene in the movie is the bus fight. I'm going to be totally honest with you. bus fight is fantastic. I think it's just a lot of fun, and yeah, I had a really good time with this one.
That's fair. Brian.
Yeah, I mean, what made this movie, I think, what it is the fact that it's a lot of the same team behind the John Wick movies. It got David Leitch produced it, who did the John Wick movies, Atomic Blonde, Deadpool 2. It's the same writer as the John Wick movies. I think they had a lot of the same kind of stunt teams and stuff working for it, and so the action and stuff is definitely, you know, kind of off the charts for me. Kirk talked about how it's kind of the trope of like this normal guy who, you know, has a set of skills, and I think that he's not wrong. It definitely has those parallels to John Wick. But what I like about this one is that it's kind of the character is kind of the opposite of John Wick, whereas John Wick didn't want anything to do with that life, and he was trying to stay out of this life and didn't want it to be, you know, come back to him. Bob Odenkirk's character in this, he's itching for it to come back to his door. I mean, there's that scene in the bus scene they're talking about where he says, you know, when God closes the window, he opens the door. He's like, please, God, open that door, because he wants those punks to come in the bus, because he wants an excuse to kick somebody's ass. And he talks about it's a long dormant part of him that's been asleep that, you know, wants so badly to see it play out, and just things like that where you can tell that he just wants to break loose. Bob Odenkirk, especially playing against type. I mean, obviously nobody would expect him to be in this big action movie. He's a comedy guy. Maybe once in a while he shows up in a dramatic role, but to see him get to come here and kick ass, that's a ton of fun. Christopher Lloyd, obviously it's great to see him in a movie. RZA, I think, is a horrible actor, but he was fine. And the soundtrack to this, I really enjoyed the soundtrack. There's a couple points where it seems like it's trying a little too hard on the needle drops, but it's got a fun soundtrack to it. But I really enjoyed this movie a lot.
I will say my complaint about the soundtrack is they tease Just a Gigolo in the trailer. They never put it in the movie. So angry when the credits were.
That's fair. I realize I didn't get star ratings from everybody. Payson.
3.5 stars.
Kirk.
3.5.
Jack.
4.
Brian.
4.
Tim, when you watch this on playback, there you go. So thank you to everyone for being here. Thank you to everyone at home for watching. Before we go, here's what next week's topics are. If you want to be on them, hit either myself or Tim Brzakala up and we'll get you on. Movies not theatrically released. This could be TV movies. This could be straight to DVD stuff. We're going to get weird. We're going to have fun. We're going to get weird. We're going to have fun. Best Picture winners. This is the only one that's like entirely full. So I'm excited for this panel. Going to be great. Action comedies and monster movies. So if you want to be on any of those, be sure to hit either myself or Tim Brzakala up. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you to our lovely panel. You were excellent tonight. Have a good one.
In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, good evening.